The program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I'm your host, Sarah Hegden. This is Transform to Freedom, and it was it's been a busy week. Like every week, I come in here and I'm like, okay, what do we got? Start, throughout the week, I start putting stuff in a folder to talk about during the show, and it has been there's a lot to talk about, and even more that I don't think that I'm going to get to today. But some stuff I may just make a standalone video for, because so for example, like Chris Rufo, if you know who that is, he just put out this this crazy thread not long. I just saw it before coming on the air, and it's this crazy thread to where it seems like the trans employees, or at least the queer employees of the federal government, the NSA specifically, and other intel agencies have had a secret chat for under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion, where you have trans people. I would say specifically trans women, talking about their genital surgeries, their gender euphoria, all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, I didn't go too deep into it because I didn't have time. Like I said, I just saw it before going on here, but it's like, this is why I can't with much of the community. Like, I don't relate to the way that these people think and the way that these people are. And it's like, you really think that it's appropriate to do this on government, like at your job during work time? Like, yeah, I would say if you go on Reddit, you can see a lot of the same stuff over on Reddit, but this is like secret group chats at work, doing it on government dime, like collecting a paycheck while talking about stuff that has nothing to do with work under the guise of DEI. This is why when you put woke in charge, you get lazy socialist people who are literally just going to sit there and parade around their kinks all over the place. So that's what we see at Pride parades. That's what we see everywhere else. So I'm thinking about doing something on that here. I just want to dig in and make sure I understand all of what's going on there, and we'll talk about that too. Also, if you follow this show, you know that this isn't a gossip show. I don't like to talk about other people. I don't gossip about people in the right wing. I do talk about like things that the people on the left have said a little bit, but I wouldn't say that this is not like a gossip show where I'm going out there and I'm here to cancel people for things that are going on. Right. But I did want to, I decided not to mention this last week, but today I wanted to just mention because, um, I've had Ashley St. Clair has been on this show before. If you remember, we talked last year. We talked a little bit about, interesting enough, her anti-birth control stance, which we've talked about. Like I've talked about, the big pharma stance, where big pharma has injected a number of chemicals into our bodies, into our water, into different areas. You have birth control, you have SSRIs, and now you have gender affirming care, that has pushed people into one direction. Now, so I've had Ashley on the show, and if you haven't been paying attention, last week she did come out because and said, 5 months ago, I welcomed a new baby into the world. Elon Musk is the father. I have not previously disclosed this to protect our child's privacy and safety, but in recent days it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so regardless of the harm it will cause. I intend to allow our child to grow in a normal and safe environment. For that reason, I ask the media to honor our child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. And then the next day, she went and did an interview with the New York Post. Now, I put out a statement on this because if you understand PR, if you understand marketing and PR, the interview and her request for privacy are actually completely in line, because you would say that if you don't give at least one interview, then the media will be hounding you until you do. If you give that interview, that allows every other news outlet to release their stories based off of that single interview, and then you kind of get left alone. There's been other stories that have been leaked through the week, 2 weeks, I think. Or no, it's been about a week and yeah. But there's been stories that have been leaked to the New York Post, from friends, all this stuff, and you can look at that however you want. I'm not going to jump in and make assumptions. What's really interesting, though, is the one that is getting attacked here, and not Elon Musk. And I will say, regardless of the circumstances, they're both are responsible for bringing a life into the world, and they both should be honoring that commitment to that child. Regardless, I'm not going to go into anything deeper than that. What's interesting, though, is a lot of people people who were once friends with Ashley put out text messages claiming to show that they actually did. So the text messages were from when Elon Musk started following Ashley St. Clair. She made jokes that she wanted to have his babies. She wanted to seduce him, and her friend was egging her on the same way. And this is the thing: people are acting like she baby trapped Elon Musk, that this was a plot and everything like that. And here's the thing: I've lived in men's spaces, and I've been in, I've been in my group of girlfriends, and every single person, like men and women both do this thing where they will say, I want to have this person's baby, and some fashion. A man may say, I want to put a baby in her, or a woman will say, I want to have his kids. Like, those are the types of things that you say to your friends when you like somebody and have a crush on somebody and everything like that. People acting like this was some nefarious plot that isn't normal, this is what happens. I guess this is what you would call the woke right? When you completely lose your sense of normalcy. Like you completely are going to shape what you're going to take whatever words you see and shape it to your narrative. And I saw this, and Lila Rose put this out, and she's right. So she said a tremendous amount of public shaming of Ashley St. Clair on X from accounts who at the same time defend Elon. Elon is just as responsible for his actions as anyone else, and he is equally responsible for his child. The double standard is wrong and cruel. Absolutely. Fully agree. They are both responsible, and they both should be handling this behind the scenes like adults. Apparently, it seems that Elon has stopped talking to his baby mamas because even this last week, Grimes, his former, I think his ex-wife, had to post something on X to get his attention for an emergency with their child. So who knows what's going on fully? But I really did. It really did hit me. I said it dawned on me that people are claiming that Ashley manipulated Elon, which essentially would mean that the guy put in charge of a key project in our government with access to vital information is easily outsmarted by a pretty face. I don't actually believe this. I agree. They made a mutual decision and are both responsible for their actions. Listen, you can't baby trap somebody. You can't baby trap a mutual party. Especially, again, when Ashley was on this show, we talked about her stance against birth control and how hormonal birth control affects young girls negatively. She's been an advocate against birth control. So if you have unprotected sex with a person who you know is not on birth control, what do you think is going to happen? And then the text messages show that he told her that he wanted to have another baby with her, other stuff like that. And yes, she took screenshots, and to me, it is reasonable that you would take screenshots when this person does not want to be on the birth certificate, and that there may come a time where you have to try to get them on the birth certificate. So you take screenshots to protect yourself. She didn't leak these screenshots to the media. They are in court documents to get a paternity test, because that's what she needs in order to then sue for sole custody and child support. That's what's going on. There's a lot of stuff out there that if you just put it into common sense, you would understand what's going on. Now, I will say yes, Ashley's been on the show. I wouldn't consider her necessarily a friend, but an acquaintance. We had the first time I met Ashley, we talked about this when she was on the show, was after I did Timcast, where we drank a bottle of wine at the hotel room, and we had a great conversation. She was really nice to me, and she's always been very kind to me. We've had disagreements on stuff, and respectfully, we've had disagreements, and we always talk about those disagreements usually in private, because I do respect Ashley. I think that she's and she respects me, and to me, I put out this statement like, I don't care who's in the wrong in all of this. To me, the biggest thing is the people who are releasing private DMs from supposed friends, right? So when I started doing this, I have friends in the industry. When I started first doing this, I saw a lot of YouTube channels being like a lot of creators out there. I'm no longer friends with so-and-so, and this is why. And I vowed to never do that type of content. Anybody who would release private DMs, and not even of just friends, but when you release private DMs, that just shows me personally that I cannot trust you. It's happened to me. I've had people release private DMs of mine. It's just disrespectful, and it just shows everybody else that they can't trust you. And so that's where I come in this. When it comes to Ashley and Elon, they can they're both adults. Let them figure this out. It doesn't need to be this massive scandal and trying to cancel somebody. This is right-wing cancel culture at its finest right now. But they can handle that and let the courts and whatever do their thing and do what they may. Like that's not what I want to do. I'm not going to talk about this much on this channel. I'm actually sorry I'm taking up so much time about this, but I do want to put it out there that if you release private DMs, I see that. I may not always comment on it, but I see it and I don't trust you. The only time I think that it is viable, it is okay to release private DMs is when you are defending yourself from out of context accusations. So if somebody accuses me of something and says I said something and I have the DMs to prove that I didn't say that, then that's a different story. But if I ever get into this mode where I'm creating content that's not about issues and it's not about what's going on in the trans community and stuff like that, if I get into this mode where I am attacking people who were once my friends, and that's what the video is about, why I'm no longer friends with people, this becomes basically a gossip channel. Call me out on that because I don't want this to be that type of channel, but call me out. And so yeah, just putting it out there. Like if you know me and you know like about this, like if we ever spoken, like, and you release my private DMs, I mean, first off, the moment that you do that, the trust is broken. But even if I like you and we are friends and you release somebody else's DMs, trust that I may be cordial with you, but I do not trust you. And I think that's one thing that if you are getting into this industry, you do learn very quickly to not trust very easily. And I only have a few close friends that completely understand this. Yes, Adrian, it's dirty as fuck. Adrian Curry, you know better than anybody. You were in the dirtiness of Hollywood as how awful this is. And like that, this is the story. Like I said, honestly, what Elon and Ashley do, that's for them to figure it all out. I'll defend Ashley against the false accusations and different stuff that's going on out there. I seem to always find myself on this end where I see people that I know getting canceled. And I don't like it because I do think that they are good people, but for them, that's between them. That's between Ashley and Elon to figure out. It's not for us to do, right? But it's the people that are canceling and attacking. I always look at the people that cancel and attack and all this stuff, and a lot of times you start to realize karma will come back. But that's the story here. That's where I have issues, and I'm more worried about the people that are releasing and piling on to somebody than what's going on even between Ashley and Elon. Adrian says it's a form of rape. They're taking something from you and exposing it to the masses. Yeah, it's something that should never. It's something that's absolutely. It's something that is done behind closed doors. They are breaking your trust and releasing it to the public for what? Simply just to make themselves feel better, to get clout and attention. Like this doesn't make you look good in my view. Like those are not the people I want to be friends with or be around. It's just it makes you feel gross, like very gross. But yeah, so that's all I'm going to talk about with that. And maybe we just shut this chapter in this because I don't want this show to be that type of show. Next thing up. So Mitch McConnell, is not seeking re-election, and thank God. I don't know how Kentucky has reelected him over and over and over. You have Rand Paul and Thomas Massie in Kentucky as well, and then you have Mitch McConnell. Like, what? Yeah, Adrian, he's alive. I don't, barely. Like, I've been calling for age limits for all political positions for a very long time. Term limits, age limits, probably even more than term limits, to be honest. I think the voters can generally vote, put it up to the voters and they can do their job. But age limits, like, you have people like Mitch McConnell, and then you had Deborah Feinstein, and then you have so many, like, when our elected offices has basically become a nursing home. That's when you know that there's an issue. Remember, the people who founded this country were in their were in their 30s. Like, there's a reason why the minimum age to be president is 35. Because most of our founding fathers were in their mid 30s when during the Revolutionary War. Through much of our history, it has been mostly 40s and 50 years. I think 40s and 50s. Now, I honestly don't think if you are past retirement age, so at 65, I think if you're 65 or younger, that should be your last term to serve. Once you hit 65, you cannot run for re-election again. I think that's fair. Like, just take your retirement and go, because at that point, you have nothing. In a lot of ways, you don't have a lot of skin in the game, right? You're not going to have to really see the consequences and live through the consequences of your actions, of what you do when you're in office. After 65, you're you'll you probably have quite a few good years, but that's why we have the retirement age. So I think 65 should be the minimum. But I don't know who we get in there. Thomas Massie has flirted with the idea of running. He said he wasn't going to, but he's flirted with the idea of running. And I would love to see Thomas Massie take this seat. Could he win? I would hope so. We could use it. We could definitely use another awesome based senator. So I would hope that he could win in Kentucky, but it's hard when you have somebody like Mitch McConnell who literally voted against almost it was like the one vote that voted almost against with the Democrats completely against all of Donald Trump's cabinet picks. Like, I don't think he knows where he's at half the time. He freezes. I just don't know. All right. Next up, this was actually pretty good. So we talked last week about the NCAA's rule change that really wasn't a rule change, that they're still hiding behind, gender ideology and stuff like that, where they made it seem like they're complying with the executive order, but they're not. Now, remember, all that Trump's executive order can do is take away funding for states who don't follow. Now, Title IX is in place. So the states still have to comply with Title IX or they can lose federal funding. What happened? So last week, a male in Maine, I believe, won a track meet. It might be pole vaulting. I'm not completely sure, but we do know that in Maine, they have not barred males from competing in female sports yet. So they were doing a governor summit at the White House, and this is what Trump had to say to Maine's Governor Janet Mills.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it? Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way.
The last little bit there is funny. Now, again, I mean, he might be right. If she pushes this and then he removes federal funding from Maine, once that hits the state, that could either help the Democrat politician or it could hurt them. Yeah, he is the king of roast. Like, he did this to I wish I would have saved this clip. I thought I saved it. The clip of Los Angeles mayor. He did it straight to her face. He did it straight to the I think the representative from Los Angeles out there talking about insurance companies. Just literally will roast people straight to their face. Like, it's great. It's fun to watch when he's doing it to these leftist politicians. Like, they deserve it. And yeah, if he cuts funding, it could affect, but it also could push people to the Democrats, because then if they see, Trump as the evil guy here. But what's really interesting, this story, I don't think that would happen, simply because 80% of the country doesn't believe that males should compete in female sports. This should be an easy one to comply with. Like, it's politically savvy if you comply with this order. Like, it just makes sense. What was the video? Oh, it was the video with the mayor of Los Angeles. So she had said something about they are doing an investigation. She was telling the reporter that they're now doing an investigation as to why she was allowed to leave the state when the fires were getting started. She said she would have never left, and that reporter said, well, why did you? It's her choice to leave. And she said, well, that's why we're doing a investigation. So she has to investigate herself as to why she left. It makes no sense. No accountability, but they will never take accountability for the actions, and it's always somebody else's fault. This was an interesting one that came up. Now, nearly 1 in 10 American adults identify as LGBTQ more than ever reported, and that's from the Gallup. And this you can talk about this. I think there's many reasons for this. We talk about queer theory. We talk about, I've talked about it with why so many children are being transitioned, why you have so many trans housing moms, mostly from upper white middle class families. And it's because of the oppressor-oppressed system in some ways, because this is a way to self-identify out of being an oppressor when you've been told forever that you are one and you can't escape it unless you become part of a minority. And the same thing is, it's cool, and it's the popular thing to do. So we can look at this as well as the social contagion aspect. Yeah, non-binary equals narcissistic people riding the attention train. Yeah, that's true. And this is the thing, is just being like labeling yourself queer is very much like, again, I always talk about like the goth kids when I was in school. Now some people will continue to be goth later, but it was the way to be counterculture but also fit into your friend group. It was the way to, I guess, rebel. But now this is becoming like the mainstream. When 1 in 10, that's becoming quite the quite the contagion there. And I do believe, yes, that there is a social contagion aspect to this, where it becomes, your friend group's doing it, so you want to fit into your friend group, and one person comes out as trans or non-binary or whatever, and so you do too. You start dressing like your friends. Like, there's an influence there that happens among friend groups, and there's a and so at the same time, and I've talked about this. This is one of the reasons why we've seen like trans-identified identities in females skyrocket since 2015, 2016, mostly because a lot of young girls want to simply opt out of womanhood, don't want to be sexualized by men at a young age, don't like that their bodies are changing. A lot of them have had sexual trauma. And so, so when you have all this happening at the same time, they a lot of the young females want to opt out of their identity, and that's why we saw a lot of it skyrocket early on. Now, we also did see the young male to female population. It was on its way up anyways, and it kind of still it jumped a little bit more than it had, but it didn't skyrocket. It was still kind of on this steady upwards trajectory. Now, I won't necessarily blame all of that on I won't blame all of this on societal factors. I think that it does have a big thing to plays a big part in it. But I would also say, I mean, again, going back to what we talked about with the birth control aspect of that, me and Ashley talked about when she was on the show. Part of we do know that homosexuality has been known to be linked to a hormone imbalance in the womb. I've talked about this quite extensively on different areas. I have a theory, and it's never been tested, but I do have a theory that same hormone imbalance does cause gender dysphoria, sex dysphoria, as well. So it's kind of the same thing as homosexuality, but it goes even further than that. It's the same type of developmental issue in the womb. And we see that when we start using birth controls, putting young females on birth controls early on, and then it affects their hormone levels. I think that it can cause an issue and create these hormonal imbalances in the womb. Same with other chemicals like I'm not going to go down too deep into conspiracy rabbit hole because I don't know. But I mean, when we see yes, in some ways, Alex Jones was right that some of the chemicals that they were putting in the water was turning the frogs gay. So if it did that, then, that's been kind of proven as well. But if it can do that, there's a theory there that you could say possibly it was creating these. It can create these chemical imbalances in the womb. SSRI is another one. There's a lot of factors that come into play when we think about different chemicals that we are putting in our bodies that can cause these hormone imbalances in the womb. And so when we start seeing more and more, and we're doing this more and more, now the generations after generation after generation is moving through this, especially with hormonal birth control. But as we see the moving through this, we're starting to now see that maybe, just maybe, that type of stuff is causing some of this. It may be a cause for why we are seeing a bigger than normal spike in LGBT youth and adults in general, because it would seem so it's not just one factor. It's not just the social contagion aspect. It's not just societal acceptance factors. there is some. I do think that some of it is chemical in nature, and the people that are doing this is the people that are coming out. A lot of them are born this way. It's not necessarily the social contagion aspect. Yeah, population control make everyone gay. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when you think population control, you put people on hormonal birth control. I mean, our infertility rates are through the roof because because of a lot of this stuff too, right? So there's I mean, we have infertility rates that go through the roof. So the hormonal birth control it has some stuff to do with that. Yes, brainwash women that kids are a burden, so you don't want that burden and make, you're shouldn't be in the home. You should go to work and you should do all this stuff. Like the feminist theory there also works with this. There's a lot of factors that play into why this could be. And so I'm not going to just throw it down onto one, but I think it's stuff that we need to address. And obviously I've talked quite at length on the different big pharma drugs and issues that I've seen before here too, and which again is really interesting because we talked extensively about that when Ashley was on my show when we were talking about hormonal birth control, and we talked about SSRIs and natural drugs that are illegal to use, even though they've shown effective towards certain things. SSRIs are a big one that I always harp on to. So I think that there's a lot we need to look at when it comes to why this is, and it's all tied together as to why more people are identifying as LGBT, why the infertility rates are through the roof. All those things are, I believe, interconnected. On top of societal factors, the social contagion aspect of this. But it is interesting. It's an interesting study that, 1 in 10, meaning that like that's a large percentage of the population. I mean, just 4 years ago, it was 5%. So it's doubled in the last 4 years. Which again, it makes you question, like, where are we going to be in a few years from now? It's like I do think that in some of it, the activists want to be they want a majority LGBT population because they want they think that once they get more activists out there, then once you get more activists out, you get like larger numbers to fight for your causes when you have more activists out there. Because like 25% of that, maybe, I think, what was it? It was at one point 25% of the LGBT community voted for Donald Trump. I don't know what it was this year, but it was large portions are also coming out as, fighting back. I think that's the normal gays, the normal LGBT and T for transsexuals fought back. And they're the ones that are voting for Trump because they get it. All right, moving on. Let's see. Big news. Kash Patel. So Donald Trump I think he swept all of his nominees, got voted in. The Senate voted for all of his nominees. Kash Patel is now the director of the FBI. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. I think just from what I've seen, Kash Patel's statements leading up to this moment have been great. He's talked about on day one closing down the FBI building and sending all the people that are in there to the streets to go be cops, because they're cops instead of bureaucrats. Go do your jobs and be on the streets, which is a great statement in and of itself. So Super excited. This is what he said at his after he got sworn in. Here it is.
Yeah, I don't have any prepared remarks. I wish I could go around the room and, tell the story about how each and every one of you have magically touched my life to put me in this position. What a roller coaster ride it has been. I do know this. We are in this room together because you guys have a love of country that is truly inspirational, and it bleeds out everywhere we go. And if you look around this room, you see civil servants, you see warriors, you see attorneys, you see great husbands and fathers and mothers and wives. And we're fighting for the same thing, our future, our children, this guy. And there is no greater mission. I wish I had more words to thank every single one of you, but every time I look at every single one of you, you guys know the stories you can't tell. More importantly, the ones you can. This is, Pam and I were just talking in the back, and we were like, do you believe this? Like, we were on the campaign trail together. We were attorneys in the first administration together. Now we're here. She's the Attorney General. I'm the director of the FBI. Like, this is insane. And I don't really fully believe it yet. I hope to, but I'm just not here without you guys. And look, I know the media's in here, and if you have a target, that target's right here. It's not the men and women at the FBI. You've written everything you possibly can about me that's fake, malicious, slanderous, and defamatory. Keep it coming, bring it on. But leave the men and women of the FBI out of it. They deserve better. And for those of you who think that there's going to be a two-tier system of justice, not with Attorney General Bondi. There's a singular system of justice for all Americans, and there will be accountability. And the reason that this mission is so important is simply the following. 100,000 people last year raped. 100,000 people died of CCP fentanyl overdose and heroin. 17,000 homicides. Violent crime is out of control. We cannot have a United States of America where that is acceptable, where someone dies every 30 minutes, where someone ODs every 7, where someone's raped every 6. That cannot be allowed to continue, and it will not be allowed to continue. Our national security mission is equally as important. Anyone that wishes to do harm to our way of life and our citizens here or abroad will face the full wrath of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And if you seek to hide in any corner of this country or any corner of this planet, we will put on the world's largest manhunt, and we will find you, and we will decide your end state, not you. We will uphold the Constitution. We will uphold ourselves to the Constitution. The men and women at the FBI, I have your back because you have the backs of the American people. You will be held to the same high standard. Any deviation from that standard will not be tolerated at this Federal Bureau of Investigation. The men and women at the FBI who make us safe deserve better, and they are going to get it with our leadership and your support. God bless America, and God bless every one of you. I love this country.
So that's great. I mean, it's awesome to see, like, with Cash getting in, it does seem like the deep state is screwed. Hopefully they get in, do exactly what we want them to do. Root out the corruption, root out the evil, root out the secrecy, root out the violations of our constitutional rights. Like, that's what we need to do. And that starts here. It starts with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying that right now the Epstein client list is sitting on her desk and is hinting at its release. I think that's one of those things that I think once, like, release it. It's like, why wait? What is she waiting for to release? And the more it sits there, the more people start to question why they can't release it. but it's on her. It's something that I think that's the first one that we need to see released. There's a lot of, I mean, I know she has the JFK files. She has the Robert F. Kennedy files and the Martin Luther King Jr. files. All of them are scheduled to be released. Donald Trump signed an executive order for those. She is now just processing them, as well as the task force in the oversight committee in Congress has done. So, release the Epstein list as well. Now I want to see who's on the Diddy list. Have you seen this? So, just this week, Diddy's attorney quits. I've never in my life seen an attorney do this. Like, under no circumstances can I continue. He quits. Listen, we've seen attorneys will defend the most heinous of murderers, the most, the worst of the worst people in the world. So what did Diddy do? Like, how bad is it really? Yeah, Robbie Thurman says, I don't trust Pam Bondi. I hope I'm wrong. I'm kind of with you on that too. I don't know much about Kash Patel other than what I've seen in his interviews. He seems like let's hope he's the guy for the job that we, want. That's not going to violate our rights. And I think that I'm going to give him every opportunity. We'll see. If I disagree, I disagree. Now, yeah, Pam Bondi, my biggest issue with her coming in, she was the person who was in Trump's ear that told him to violate the Fourth Amendment, or violate due process. When Trump made the statement about take the guns first, due process later, violating the Second and Fourth Amendment, that was her. And so that's my biggest critique of her. And hopefully she does what she's supposed to. I mean, again, all these lists should be coming out. And I want to see the Diddy list. I want to see what Diddy did or did he not do. Because having an attorney quit just doesn't look good. It makes it seem like it's worse than you could even imagine. And it looked pretty bad in the first place. So I am let's see what happens. Now, if you see the title of this episode, what'd you do last week? So if you don't know where that's coming from, yeah, Mishka, I've never heard an attorney quitting before, like ever. I don't. It's crazy to me. So if you didn't know though, so last week, Elon Musk sent out an email to every single agency in the federal government. Said if you basically, so it says if you send an email back with 5 bullets of what you did last week, basically what you did for your job last week. Email says non-responders will be fired. This actually is the first time that we're seeing, again, now we're seeing the agencies themselves under Trump cabinet picks are pushing back against Elon, because and at first it's like, yes, this makes sense. Honestly, the whole thing was that Elon said that he was sending out a message just to see who actually reads their emails, basically seeing who has a pulse and who's working. It doesn't even have to do with their evaluations or anything like that, but it's to see whose emails are even responsive, right? But in a way, this is actually kind of overstepping the Doge authority, because in a lot of these cases where they've already fired and let go a bunch of people, they were not done based on merit. They were done based on numbers, quantity instead of quality. And so those are probably going to court soon too. Because the thing is yes, now what the Doge initiative should have done is said, go in, you have this much money that can be saved, go in and let go whoever you need to let go to do this. This is your department. And so now that we're starting to see the Trump team, the Trump secretaries all have now started to come out. This is the first thing where they've actually pushed back on Doge. So first, I mean, we saw Department of Defense said DoD personnel may have received an email from OPM requesting information. The Department of Defense is responsible for reviewing the performance of its personnel, and it will conduct any review in accordance with its own procedures. When and if the department will coordinate responses to the email you have received from OPM. For now, please pause any response to the OPM email entitled, "What did you do last week?" As well, a statement, Tulsi Gabbard came out, said, told the National Intelligence Agency, do not answer, especially with the nature of their with the nature of their business. A lot of that stuff is classified, and that stuff could be leaked in there, and that's not what they wanted to do. And so I mean, and I said this. I mean, I said, that's the thing. Tulsi does not work for Elon. The Doge initiative is to find waste in government agencies, not to determine who to hire and fire. Now that we have cabinets in place, it is the secretary's job to make these decisions within their departments. If you want to cut the workforce, then you have to let Tulsi know, and she needs to figure out how she's going to cut that workforce. That's her responsibility. That's how the chain of command works. Same with HHS, with RFK, and so on, right? That's the way that it's Pete Hegseth with the Department of Defense. Was the same call that he made. And there was a long list of agencies that were saying, telling their people not to do it. As a former, I mean, because this is the thing is, yeah, you can come in but you can't just go in and fire people. This is one of the issues with some of the agencies, but especially in the Department of Defense. In the military, you can't just go in and fire soldiers. There's a long, arduous process to get somebody, to chapter somebody out of the military. Now, in orders do not come from outside agencies. You don't work for outside agencies. You work for your direct supervisor, and orders come from the top down chain of command. It's set up like that for a reason, and it has been since the founding of our country, and it's for good order and discipline. And so a lot of these agencies, that's the way it should work, and it's going to work. And so you see this now with all the secretaries being like, hold up, no, we're not doing that. Some of them said, hey, yes, I think this is a great idea, let's do it. But it should be to those agencies to now pull the Doge people in to say, where do you think we can cut? Where do you think the best place to cut is? And let the secretaries to make those final decisions as to what they can do and where they can cut. They don't work for Elon. Elon is not even I mean, nobody in the Doge initiative is even a Senate approved. It's not, nobody has been approved by the Senate to be leading those committees. So, and this is the secretary's job, and this is the chain of command, and we'll see what happens with those lawsuits and stuff too. Next thing is this came out this last week. Elon Musk is he's talked about sending not all Americans, it said every household sending $5,000 checks using the savings that Doge has created. Donald Trump has said, and they've been calling it a Doge dividend. And Donald Trump has said, possibly he's looking at possibly sending a dividend of 20% to all taxpayers, or 20% to taxpayers, and then 20% to paying down the debt. Honestly, yeah, I would love $5,000. Yes. It comes across as UBI though. This is like a red herring to implement UBI, because it's like, oh, hey, we're going to save some money, so we're just going to give you that money now and you can spend it on what you want. It seems like in a way to get people used to receiving federal money. And now I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they think that it would be popular and they could get a lot of support for it, and it would be people would like that. People would like, what can you do for me type stuff is what this is. And $5,000, yeah, who wouldn't want $5,000? The problem is that $5,000, one, it's not saved yet. Two, it's still causing inflation. So it's at the same time, I would rather send all of it to pay down the debt, so that we're not printing as much money, so that we're not paying inflation later on. That's the trade-off. Like, we're going to still pay for this. You're not actually getting the $5,000. You get the $5,000 to spend now, but then, these things, they don't really work. Whenever they send out those stimulus checks, like in 2000, like when Bush was in office, and then I think again in 2020, they sent out the stimulus checks. They don't work. They've been proven over time to not actually help, because what ends up happening is most people use that money that they get to pay off debt and not go out and spend it on goods and services to then boost the economy. No. They spend it. They are paying down their credit card debt and their houses and stuff. So they're not actually putting it back into the economy. They're spending the money is already spent that they're paying now. So no, and actually, so this is the other thing that we need to remember. Doge is supposedly saving money, but everything that Doge is doing is all going to be for naught if Congress doesn't get off its ass and cut and actually cut the budget. And what's the problem, and this is where the black pill comes in, is that Rand Paul had a amendment in a recent bill that would have cut $1.5 trillion from the federal budget. And what was it? It failed in the Senate. Something like 26 Republicans voted against it. So I don't even know if it's possible to get Congress to pass a budget cut at this point, but that's what's needed. So everything that Doge is doing right now could all be for naught if Congress doesn't do their job and pass budget cuts, because that's really where these cuts are coming from. The money that they're saving is already spent. Like the money that's they're cutting is already been spent in these agencies. They need Congress to come in and do their jobs and cut the spending. Which is exactly what this is exactly what happened. What this oh my gosh. Sorry, y'all. Okay. This is not happening. So one Ohio representative basically said the same thing. Said that here it is. Jeez. Trump's executive orders are getting out of control, wants Congress to do their job. And that's exactly what I was just saying. Yeah, okay. We've never honestly, Donald Trump has issued more executive orders in his first month in office than any other president has ever issued in their entire 4 years in office, or 8 years in office. So they're getting, what he's doing is one thing, though Congress needs to do their job, because we can't rule by executive order. we're kind of coming to the end. I've said this in the past on this show too, that we're kind of coming to the end as to what the president can do with executive order. And sooner or later, Congress is going to have to step up and do their jobs and start passing legislation. It's going to be a very interesting when Congress actually starts passing legislation, because other than the one reconciliation bill, budget bill that you get for the year, you need to get 7 Democrat senators to come along to your side to pass anything. So I don't see a lot getting passed in this next year. And then we're right into the thick of midterms. And Democrats aren't going to want to give President Trump or Republicans a win coming into midterms. So we really have like a year to get anything done. But hopefully it's just, hopefully we just move on from it, right? Hopefully we, in a lot of ways, I prefer gridlock in Congress. I've talked about this before. I think the less that the government can do, the better. So sometimes gridlock is good. I typically support and I like and support when Congress is divided. Usually, as a libertarian, I don't want them to be spending. I don't want them to be passing a lot of regulations. Now, the one area where I'm kind of like, I wish that they could do some stuff is is to cut regulations, because that would be nice if they would start cutting regulations, but they're not. Then let's see. So here's another one. The State Department officially designates Mexican cartels MS-13 Tren de Aragua as global terrorist organizations following Trump's executive order. This is kind of scary. If we're talking about a war on our southern border, people think that going against the cartels would be some easy feat to root them out, but it's not. We couldn't even root the Taliban out of Afghanistan. Okay. And what you don't understand is these people don't operate off of a standard rules of engagement, standard, Geneva Convention stuff. When this stuff starts happening, you start seeing children of politicians being taken captive. Bye, Robbie. It was good to see you. But you start seeing children of politicians taken captive. You start to see some horrific deaths of people, of innocent people. You start seeing them pushing more fentanyl into the country. Start cutting drugs heavier in order to kill Americans. Obviously, my libertarian views say that, and I do believe this, is that the way that you destroy the cartels is the same way that we destroyed the mob bosses in the early 20s. You legalize stuff like drugs. If you legalize the drugs, then one, you can regulate them so that they're safer. If you use it like Portugal, if you're like Portugal, you can actually get people the help that they need, because they're not afraid that they're going to be thrown in users are not going to be afraid that they're going to go get thrown in a jail cell simply for using. This is the same thing with sex workers too. Generally with sex workers, the prostitutes are generally afraid to go to police when they're being trafficked, because they believe that they are going to be thrown in a cage when they're the victim of the crime. And so if you make it so that people can do it in a legal manner, then usually you start to root out stuff like the human trafficking, the drug, the fentanyl crisis would start to evaporate, because you wouldn't wouldn't have the cartels cutting it with so many different things. You'd actually have clean drugs. And this thing is like, you can say that, I would say that there's a difference between something that I think that you should do or should be able to do. They're different things. You should be able to do what you want with your body. But do you think you should do drugs? No. But that's like with alcohol. Alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world. More people die from alcohol every year than any other drug in the world. It's consistently the number one most dangerous drug listed. And yet it's legal. Why is it legal? Because people see it as not as dangerous. We have laws around drinking and driving. We have laws that protect individuals from people from violating other people's rights. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. Your rights end where mine begin. So it's this idea that we already have stuff in place to where if I'm on drugs and I come over and I violate your rights, then that is against the law. In Portugal, they saw a lot of people getting off of drugs after they decriminalized it, because they basically said if you have more than a 2-week supply on hand, you go to, or it's a single use on hand, you go to you go in front of a board in general, you go into rehab, and then you get clean. It was a good system when they decriminalized drugs in Portugal. But in the early 20s, once they legalized alcohol again, what happened? The mobs went away. The mob bosses, there was no, like, organized crime went away. It went into other drugs, and that's where we get the gangs. The gangs are the same as the mob bosses of the 20s. And it is interesting, right? So, in the early 20s, when alcohol was prohibited, when it was illegal, beer was not drink. So people didn't really drink beer at the time. You know why they didn't drink beer at the time? Because it was expensive. Beer is more expensive, and so they would actually make more, and it was harder to cut. So with whiskey and moonshine and stuff like that, you can actually cut it with different stuff, and you can make more money by cutting it, thus actually making it more dangerous and more potent. So that's why when you have something like that's illegal, a drug that's illegal, it's being cut with fentanyl, because fentanyl is a lot more potent and a lot cheaper than these other drugs. So it's literally the same what's that called? It's the same. What's the word? It's the same type of thing, right? So, yeah. God, what is that word I'm thinking? It's an easy word. I don't know. Oh, so here we are. Joy Reid, MSNBC cancels Joy Reid's show. This is again showing that woke goes broke, and MSNBC is now finding out that woke goes broke. Joy Reid, the race baiter Joy Reid, is going broke. Here, I gotta restart the screen real quick, and let me see. Just to remind you, this was when Tiffany Justice was on with Joy Reid talking about the books, and Joy Reid didn't want to hear what she had to say.
public library, sell the book, right? We're talking about a public school library. Children don't have unfettered access to the internet at school. I did a FOIA records request, and I wanted to see what kinds of internet sites are banned in schools, if we're going to talk about banning, right? And the subject matter in the books that moms are concerned about are the same things that kids don't have access to on the internet. So it just feels very hypocritical, right? No, why is no one out there protesting for, you know, free the internet in schools?
Let me give you is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What is your expertise?
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, rape, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so I'm going to answer
Please
for you. In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school? Just I mean, that's my question to you. Tell me what the context around the strap-on dildo or the rape of a minor child by a teacher.
Hold on a second.
No,
wait,
we're talking about public school.
One moment.
All right.
So now
Saw what some of the content.
So yeah, she defended it, and obviously that clip should have been longer. But she was Joy defended having these books in school, right? So, and oh boy, last thing on the docket. Our least favorite person, my least favorite person. Why is this not launching? Okay. Oh, the Blossom, the person who I was on Jubilee with, has been all over the internet the last couple of days. Listen, I understand why people are putting Blossom on. It's all for clicks and ratings, and Blossom has nothing intelligent to ever say about anything. I read Christopher Rufo's book about basically DEI, and it was about critical race theory and critical. It was I forget what the name of that book is, but it was his book, and it was talking. And really, what you start to understand is Blossom uses the same talking points in every single interview. Use the same strategies to think about getting clicks and attention. They don't work. Like so recently Blossom was on with Michael Knowles in the Jubilee debate, says in that and in this clip with Pierce Morgan on Pierce Morgan's show, said use the "don't interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking" line like it's some it's like a catchphrase at this point. Like it's a catchphrase. And if you watch the clips from this, I honestly, Blossom is like playing a character. It seems like somebody, honestly, when I watch this, I feel like I'm watching the Joker. Like, and that's really what it is, a narcissistic personality disorder and probably borderline personality disorder together. Tied together, and has absolutely no idea, or does have an idea but just doesn't care that they're really ruining the acceptance of all trans people. And people will platform Blossom because it shows the craziest of the crazy so that they can associate trans people with their crazy of Blossom. And I said Blossom is the woke intersection, is what woke intersectionality would be if it was a person. Blossom knows the Angela Davis playbook by hand. Blossom is crazy, and as Riley Gaines says here, is the reason that Trump won. And if the left can't call people like that out because they're afraid of being bigots against an identity because Blossom is black and a trans woman, then they will continue to lose. Honestly, probably one of the dumbest people I've ever met and had the displeasure of debating. It's like I can't tell you, like, yeah, you know, when we did that video, all these comments were like, I don't know how. And actually, some of you guys in my audience now may be liberal, but found yourself agreeing with trans conservatives in that debate. I've had a lot of black liberals be like, I can't, like, it has nothing to do with your skin color. But this was craziness. Like, watch this.
I think Donald Trump should stop booty clapping to Elon Musk and actually get something done in this country. And eradicating trans people is not going to be it.
We all felt betrayed. We all felt violated in the locker room.
Riley is just a tremendous athlete, and it was a very unfair situation.
And to have a president who is willing to listen to us, feel entirely vindicated.
There are only two genders, male and female.
Donald Trump is a complete moron. Trans people exist. There are more than two sexes.
Blossom, should we combine the Paralympics with the regular Olympics? Have them all compete with each other?
We talk about trans people. We're talking about gender identity. I need both of y'all mindset to become more expansive.
Right.
I know that's a little hard for
Can you
both
answer
of
my
you.
question?
I think what you're saying is conservative propaganda. I think what you're
Propaganda?
saying is y'all.
Can you answer my question?
I mean, why not? And to go back to
Right,
Riley's
yeah,
point.
why not?
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
You
yeah.
are completely insane.
Honey, it takes one to know one.
People like Blossom are exactly why Donald Trump won.
For me, this is absolutely.
Yeah. It's I mean, go back and listen to anything that Blossom has ever done, and it is conservative propaganda. Remember when we were talking about the bathroom stuff, and this came up in the Michael Knowles debate too, but it was like when me and Blair and we're talking to Blossom about the video that had come out of a man in a woman's bathroom with a boner in the women's restroom. And Blossom's like, that sounds like, you know, conservative propaganda. Like that was the defense. Blossom just says these things and then doesn't realize they're the moron. Like thinking that we can't open our minds and be expansive because we're not agreeing with what you're saying. Like, then it was. So when Riley said, oh my gosh, was actually when Blossom said, yes, we should allow the Paralympics to combine with the regular Olympics. There's no need to separate. Also said there's no reason to separate by male and female sports. It should just all be one sport. That's what Blossom said. Like, complete, and as Pierce made a note in it, said, so you're just going to erase female athletes in general, which is, I honestly, I think Blossom went on there to be as crazy and as cringe as possible. In the Michael Knowles debate, Blossom had said, hey, why don't you bring me on your show? So it does seem like Blossom is just using these opportunities to be crazy so that way to get platformed on other shows. And that's kind of what happened. The Michael Knowles thing came out, and then immediately Blossom is on with Pierce Morgan talking about males and female sports. Blossom's not an athlete. So why would that be the person that you go to talk about males and female sports? I don't get it. They wouldn't have me on because, I mean, me and Riley agree on this issue. So, but that's not the person that you want to do that. I thought it was kind of funny. Riley's face right here. I was like, you know, been there. I see that eye roll when I had the Lord give me strength moment in our debate. I can't believe I was sitting between these two people who are both quite cringe and have been quite cringe in other stuff that they've done. And I'm the smallest person there. I'm like, Blossom. Yeah, Blossom. I honestly think Blossom is like the Joker, and is like a narcissistic, borderline personality disorder, like combined type stuff. It that's the way it comes off. And the laugh, it takes one to know one, all this stuff is it really came across as, well, a lot of people have said Blossom is acting in a stereotype that they think is what a black woman is supposed to act like. That's the stereotype that Blossom gives off. Which, I mean, maybe. I think that's part of it. It could be. I'm trying to think back. I can't remember. I didn't really interact with Blossom offset, like not even like in breaks or anything like that at the Jubilee debate. I didn't talk to Blossom at all. I don't remember Blossom being, out there and super extravagant like that. But I didn't really interact with Blossom. Didn't really care to interact with Blossom. Don't care. I honestly, before I do anything, like, this is why I think Jubilee knows that Blossom being there is going to get the views and clicks. It's going to get posted on X, and they're going to have it's going to drive people to their site. That's the reason why. But nobody on their staff, they have to know that having Blossom on there is actually detrimental to. I think the people over at Jubilee are actually more conservative than they let on. Because they would never have Blossom on because they know Blossom would hurts the leftist cause. I that's what I think. I think that they otherwise, or they just know that they need the money. They need to bring in the clicks and views, and Blossom's going to do that. But I mean, after threatening Blair, I'm surprised that they continue to have Blossom on. I don't like to talk about that individual. I cringe anytime I hear that individual's voice. I hope to never be in the same room as Blossom again. Now, if you want the white pill of the day, and this is the last clip we're going to go to, you can just thank God we did not get this woman as our president. This is what she says as she visits the California wildfires for the first time.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
What goes through your mind when you see?
And they wonder why she didn't win. That's the biggest non-answer I've ever heard. Like I said, that's the white pill of the day, is that she didn't win office. All right, y'all. Well, thank you for joining. If you've made it this far, make sure you click that like, subscribe button below. Make sure to follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.